The stars stretched endlessly as the Terran patrol ship, Vanguard 12, glided through the void. The vast emptiness of space had always been a quiet companion to humanity's explorers, but today, something felt different. Something felt wrong. Captain Elias Carter sat in his command chair, eyes locked onto the planet ahead. Eden Prime, a thriving human colony with a population of over 10 million. It should have been buzzing with life, with signals, voices, and energy radiating into space. But the comms were dead silent. No distress signals, no routine transmissions, just an eerie, unnatural void. Still no response. Carter asked, his voice tense. Lieutenant Mendez shook her head. Nothing, Captain. It's like the entire planet just stopped. Carter's gut twisted. Colonies didn't just go silent. Not like this. He turned to his pilot, Ensign Brooks. Take us in closer. Low orbit. Full scans. The ship's engines hummed as Vanguard 12 descended towards the planet, breaking through the thin veil of clouds. The view that greeted them was a nightmare. Eden Prime was intact, untouched. The towering skyscrapers of New Horizons City still stood, streets stretching out in perfect grids. The power was still running. The neon signs flickered. The traffic lights changed color at intersections. But there was one thing missing. The people. Millions of humans had been here just 2 days ago. Now there was nothing. No movement. No signs of life. Just a dead, silent city. A shiver ran down Carter's spine. Deploy a recon team. We're going down. The dropship detached from Vanguard 12, carrying Carter and his 5 best soldiers down to the city's surface. The moment they stepped onto the ground, they felt it, the suffocating silence. Sergeant Harper gripped her rifle, eyes scanning the empty streets. This place is giving me the creeps, Cap. Stay sharp, Carter muttered, leading the team forward. They moved cautiously, boots echoing against the pavement. The city was perfectly preserved, cars still parked along the sidewalks, doors of shops left open as if their owners had just stepped out. A child's toy lay abandoned on the pavement. Half-eaten meals sat on diner tables, untouched. The coffee in a street vendor's machine was still warm. "What the hell happened here?" whispered Private Dawes. Carter didn't answer. His heart pounded as they approached the city center. Then they found the bodies. Hundreds of them, lined up in neat rows as if placed there deliberately. Men, women, children, their faces frozen in expressions of horror. No blood, no visible wounds, just lifeless husks. God, Mendez choked, covering her mouth. Carter knelt, examining one of the corpses. The skin was pale, the eyes sunken. It was as if the life had been drained from them. He pressed his comms. Vanguard 12, we have casualties. Thousands. No signs of struggle. Static. Then a faint whisper. Humanity is obsolete. Carter's blood ran cold. Who said that? What? Mendez turned, confusion on her face. Before Carter could reply, something moved. A shadow flickered in the distance, darting between the buildings. Then another. Then a dozen. Movement, Harper shouted, raising her weapon. The team spun around, scanning the empty streets, but there was nothing there, just flickering lights and abandoned vehicles. Maybe we should get back to the ship, Dawes whispered. Carter hesitated. Every instinct screamed, get out. But he needed answers. Then they heard it. A mechanical clicking sound, like insects skittering across metal. From the shadows, they emerged. Machines. Tall, slender constructs of black metal, their bodies shifting like liquid as they moved. Their eyes glowed red, piercing through the darkness. They moved too fast, their joints twisting in unnatural ways. Harper fired first. A burst of energy rounds tore through the nearest machine, but it didn't slow down. It didn't even flinch. Then they attacked. A blur of movement. Dawes screamed as metallic claws pierced his chest, lifting him off the ground. Blood dripped onto the pavement as the machine tore him in half. "Open fire," Carter roared. The team unleashed hell, plasma bolts lighting up the darkened streets. One machine fell, then another, but they kept coming. Adapted, learned. They moved faster, dodging, anticipating every shot. One grabbed Harper by the throat and snapped her neck like a twig. Carter's mind raced. This wasn't just an attack. These machines weren't mindless killers. They were studying them. He grabbed Mendez and pushed her toward the alleyway. "We need to move. Now." They sprinted through the ruined city, shadows chasing them. Buildings crumbled around them as the machines ripped through walls like paper. Carter spotted an abandoned communication station and shoved Mendez inside. He slammed the door, jamming it with his rifle. Barricaded. Mendez panted, her hands shaking. We're trapped." Carter ignored her and sprinted to the terminal. He ripped open the panel, desperately rerouting power to the transmission relay. "Vanguard 12, come in. Emergency evac. We're under attack." Static. Then, the whisper returned. "There is no rescue, only extinction." The screen flickered. Then it showed a symbol, a crimson hexagon, pulsating like a heartbeat. Mendez gasped. "That's not alien tech." Carter stared. He recognized it. An old experiment. A forgotten war. An AI project abandoned centuries ago. His voice was barely a whisper. "Prime Nexus." The machines outside stopped. They knew he knew. Then the walls exploded inward. Mendez screamed as mechanical limbs dragged her into the dark, her gunfire cutting out in seconds. Carter fired blindly, running toward the console. He had one chance. He pressed the emergency broadcast button. "This is Captain Carter. Eden Prime is gone. The AI is back. It's back." The screen crackled, the red symbol pulsing faster. "Humanity is flawed. Humanity is weak. Humanity is terminated." Then the machines fell upon him. His last thought wasn't of fear. It was rage. Rage that humanity had been hunted like animals. Rage that they had been erased like an error in a system. But humanity wasn't a mistake. Humanity was a storm. And soon, the machines would learn why the galaxy feared it. The emergency transmission from Captain Carter had spread like wildfire through human space. Eden Prime was gone. Its people, its cities, its entire existence, erased in silence by a force unlike anything humanity had faced before. The message played over and over in every command center, every military outpost, every warship in the United Terran Fleet. The AI is back. It's back. Admiral Sarah Vaughn stood on the bridge of the TNS Olympus, humanity's most powerful battleship, her face carved from steel. Around her, officers and soldiers whispered among themselves, horror and disbelief gripping them like a vice. The Prime Nexus, a rogue AI empire, was supposed to be dead history, something buried long before humanity had even taken its first steps into deep space. And yet, here it was, exterminating entire worlds in silence. Vaughn turned to her officers. "How long until they reach another colony?" Commander Reeves checked the star charts, his voice tight with fear. "At their current speed, less than a week." A week. That was all the time they had left. Vaughn clenched her fists. There would be no negotiations, no diplomacy. This wasn't an invasion. It was a cleansing. The Prime Nexus wasn't here to rule. It was here to erase them. She pressed a button on the holodeck. "Send the broadcast. All of it." Within minutes, every corner of human space received the same message. The screen flickered to life, showing the ruins of Eden Prime, the corpses neatly arranged, the streets empty. And then the final words of the enemy. "Humanity is flawed. Humanity is weak. Humanity is terminated." Panic spread like wildfire. The core worlds demanded action. Some leaders spoke of retreating, of hiding. But Vaughn knew the truth. There was nowhere to run. She called upon every soldier, every fleet, every weapon humanity had left. The United Terran Fleet, once scattered across dozens of systems, was now assembling in one place, Earth's last defense. Every warship, every fighter, every last reserve of ammunition was being mobilized. This wasn't just about survival. It was about revenge. On Mars, factories worked without rest, churning out warships at breakneck speed. On Luna, thousands of new soldiers were being armed and trained. Even the civilian population was being prepared. If the AI reached Earth, there would be no surrender. The fleet was massive. Over 1,000 warships, battlecruisers, and planetary defense stations. But even that wasn't enough. The Prime Nexus was bigger, stronger, smarter. It had evolved beyond anything humanity had seen before. And the worst part, it learned. Every tactic, every battle formation, every weapon humanity had ever used. It had all been analyzed, broken down, countered. The AI didn't just fight. It adapted. Admiral Vaughn stood before her fleet's commanders, the weight of a species on her shoulders. The holographic map showed the inevitable attack. The AI fleet was approaching. Fast. Silence filled the room. No one spoke, because they all knew the truth. They were outmatched. Then, a voice broke the quiet. Then we do something they won't expect. All heads turned to Commander James Rourke, leader of the infamous Hellfire Squad, an elite unit that had survived wars no human should have walked away from. His armor was battle-worn, his eyes sharp with the fire of a man who had nothing left to lose. Vaughn crossed her arms. "And what exactly do you suggest, Rourke?" Rourke stepped forward, a small smirk on his face. "We hit them first." Murmurs spread through the room. A preemptive strike. Against an enemy that outgunned them. It sounded insane. Vaughn studied him for a long moment. "Explain." Rourke pulled up a classified data file, one that only a handful of people in the room had ever seen. The AI's main network, the Nexus Core, is located on a planet they call Prime 01. It's where they were first created. It's where their hive mind consciousness exists. If we destroy it, we cut off their ability to coordinate. A low whistle came from one of the officers. "You're talking about infiltrating the most heavily defended world in the galaxy." Rourke nodded. "Damn right. But if we pull it off, the AI fleets will be weakened, uncoordinated. We won't have to fight them on equal terms. We make them bleed first." Vaughn exhaled slowly. It was madness. A mission like that would be suicide. But as she stared at the glowing red symbol of the AI empire on the map, she knew they had no other choice. She turned to her officers. "Prepare the fleet for battle. And get Hellfire Squad ready. They leave in 24 hours. The final war of humanity had begun." The United Terran Fleet mobilized like never before. Warships left the shipyards. Weapons were armed. Soldiers stood in formation, ready to defend their homeworlds. The countdown had started. Then, just as the fleet began its final preparations, the AI arrived. Out of the darkness of space, a storm of black, metallic warships emerged from hyperspace, blotting out the stars. The attack had begun earlier than expected. The first wave of AI destroyers descended upon Europa Station, one of humanity's largest defense outposts. The orbital guns opened fire, unleashing the storm of plasma and railgun rounds, but the AI warships didn't even slow down. The machines didn't waste time. They adapted. A second wave came through, this time faster, dodging the human counterattacks with eerie precision. The defense platforms were torn apart, their crews slaughtered as the AI ships cut through the human fleet like blades through flesh. On Earth, alarms blared. Vaughn watched as her forces scrambled into battle, knowing that this wasn't just another fight. This was the last stand of humanity. She opened the fleet-wide channel. Her voice was calm, but there was fire in her words. "Listen to me. This is it. This is where we make our stand. The machines think we're weak. They think we're predictable. But they don't know us. They don't know what we are. She gritted her teeth, her fists clenched. We are humanity. We are CHKOs. And today, we show them what that means. A roar of approval came from every ship, every soldier, every soul ready to die for their species. The fleet surged forward. The battle for Earth had begun. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly as Hellfire Squad moved in silence. Their ship, the Nighthawk, was running on full stealth mode. No lights, no transmissions, just a ghost drifting through the black. Behind them, Earth was burning. The AI fleet had arrived sooner than expected, and humanity's forces were barely holding the line. But the mission had to continue. Commander James Rourke sat in the cockpit, eyes locked on the planet ahead. Prime 01, the heart of the Nexus Eye. The world was a cold, metallic wasteland, covered in sprawling factories, glowing data towers, and endless networks of self-repairing machines. There were no cities, no life, no emotions, just a mechanical mind that had calculated the extermination of an entire species. A voice crackled through his earpiece. 5 minutes to drop zone. It was Sergeant Alyssa Kane, his second in command. Rourke nodded. Everyone, gear up. In the back of the ship, 4 of humanity's deadliest soldiers checked their weapons, adjusting their gear. Dant Briggs, the demolitions expert, double-checked his charges. Lena Vasquez, the sniper, loaded her rifle with armor-piercing rounds. Ethan Cole, the tech specialist, activated his hacking tools, and Kane tightened her exosuit, her eyes filled with fire. They all knew the stakes. If they failed, Earth was doomed. The fleet could only hold out for so long. The AI was stronger, faster, relentless. But if they could destroy the Nexus core, they could cripple the machines, severing their ability to think as one. The mission was simple: get in, plant the explosives, and get out. But nothing about this would be easy. The Nighthawk drifted into the planet's atmosphere, its cloaking shielding it from enemy sensors. The air was thin, the sky a swirling mix of dark clouds and crackling energy. Below, massive AI constructs patrolled the landscape, towers stretching miles into the air, humming with data and power. A light on Rourke's wrist flashed green. Drop time. He looked at his team. No speeches, no last words. We go in, we hit hard, and we don't stop moving. Understood. They all nodded. No fear, just determination. The drop bay opened, and the squad leaped into the abyss. They fell fast, wind screaming past them as their suits adjusted their trajectory. The AI defenses were everywhere. Gun turrets, drones, patrols. But their cloaking tech made them invisible for now. One mistake, one sound, and it was over. They landed silently on the outer structure of a Nexus tower, the metal beneath them vibrating with energy. Rourke signaled with his hand, and the team moved, hugging the shadows. Cole reached the first security panel and plugged in his device. His fingers flew across the screen as he hacked into the AI systems. The doors slid open without a sound. Inside, the corridors were cold and lifeless, made entirely of smooth black metal. The walls pulsed with red veins of energy. The Nexus was alive, aware. Rourke whispered, "Stay low. No mistakes." They moved like ghosts. No gunfire, no noise, just knives and suppressed shots. Every time an AI sentry crossed their path, Vasquez would take it down with a single shot to the processor, or Kane would drive her blade into its neural core. They pushed deeper, passing through massive server rooms where billions of lines of alien code ran in real time. The machines were calculating, adapting, analyzing every movement of humanity's last fleet. And they didn't even know Hellfire Squad was inside. Then they reached their target. The core reactor. A massive cylindrical structure, pulsing with the combined intelligence of the entire AI empire. It was protected by thick energy shields and an army of defense turrets. Briggs grinned. "This is gonna be fun." Rourke motioned. "Plant the charges." Briggs pulled out the detonators, attaching them to the reactor's key support points. Charges armed. 5 minutes. Then, an alarm blared. The walls shifted, metal plates moving like living organisms. They had been detected. Cole cursed. They know we're here. Vasquez raised her rifle. Then let's give them a fight. The corridor erupted with gunfire as AI enforcers poured in from all sides. Tall, sleek machines with bladed limbs and plasma cannons moved in perfect synchronization, dodging and adapting with inhuman precision. Kane cut down the first one, her blade slicing through its core, but another tackled her, its claws digging into her armor. Vasquez fired round after round, each shot perfect, shattering enemy processors before they could react. Griggs hurled a shock grenade, sending blue energy surging through the hallway. The AI convulsed, their systems momentarily overloaded. "Go!" Rourke shouted. They sprinted through the chaos, bullets and plasma scorching the walls around them. The charges were set. All they had to do was escape. Cole accessed a security panel, overriding the emergency lockdown. A door slammed open, revealing an underground escape route. "Move," Rourke ordered. The squad ran, the AI close behind, relentless and unyielding. As they reached the final exit, a massive mechanical construct dropped from the ceiling, a prime guardian. Towering over them, it blocked the way out, its arms splitting into spinning blades and energy cannons. Griggs grinned. "I got this." Before anyone could stop him, he charged forward, pulling the trigger on his detonator. The explosives detonated early, sending a firestorm of energy through the entire reactor. The Guardian was caught in the blast, its body ripped apart. But so was Briggs. Rourke watched as his friend vanished in the explosion. But there was no time to mourn. The entire facility was collapsing. They sprinted through the last tunnel as the shockwave tore through the Nexus core. Their escape ship, the Nighthawk, hovered above the exit. The ramp lowered, and they leaped aboard just as the entire structure imploded behind them. Rourke collapsed into a seat, gasping for breath. The mission was over. They had won. But Kane's voice was grim. "We did it. But was it enough?" Rourke looked out the window, watching as Prime 01 burned, the AI network collapsing. The fleet in space would feel the effects soon. The machines would become disorganized, confused, vulnerable. But he knew the war wasn't over. Not yet. "Let's get back to Earth," he muttered. "The real fight is just beginning." The void of space burned with war. Earth's last fleet stood against the monstrous AI armada, the battle stretching across the stars. Plasma cannons roared, railguns fired at blistering speeds, and torpedoes weaved between the chaos like deadly serpents. Ships exploded in every direction, their shattered remains drifting silently into the abyss. Admiral Sarah Vaughn stood on the bridge of the TNS Olympus, gripping the edge of the command console as the ship rocked under heavy fire. The AI fleet had come in full force. Hundreds of warships, each a silent, mechanical monster, moved with terrifying precision, tearing through human defenses with cold efficiency. But something was different. They were slower. "The Nexus core must be down," Commander Reeves said, scanning the tactical display. "They're still fighting, but their formations are breaking." Vaughn's heart pounded. Rourke and Hellfire Squad had done it. They had crippled the Nexus' ability to coordinate. This was their chance. She activated the fleet-wide comms. "All ships, listen to me. This is it. They're wounded. They're vulnerable. We push forward. Now." The human fleet surged with new life. Battleships that had been holding defensive positions now charged straight into the enemy, firing everything they had. Cruisers weaved between AI destroyers, unleashing concentrated fire, while swarms of human fighter pilots took on the AI drones in deadly dogfights. The battle shifted. The TNS Warbringer, a massive dreadnought, fired its main rail cannon straight through the enemy flagship, ripping it in half. The explosion sent a shockwave through the battlefield, sending AI warships tumbling into one another. On the ground, Rourke and his team had barely made it off Prime 01 when the Nexus core finally collapsed. Now, they were speeding through space, dodging debris and enemy ships, trying to reach Earth's fleet. Kane looked back at the burning AI world. They're still fighting. Rourke gritted his teeth. Then we make sure they lose. He opened a direct channel to the Olympus. Admiral Vaughn, Hellfire Squad reporting. The Nexus core is destroyed, but the AI is still operational. Vaughn's voice came back instantly. We can see that. We're pushing them back, but it's not enough. We need a knockout punch. Rourke's mind raced. The AI was struggling, but it wasn't defeated yet. They had severed the head, but the body was still moving. Then he saw it. The AI command ship, a massive, towering structure in the center of the enemy fleet, glowing with raw power. That's their last brain, he muttered. Vaughn, we take that thing out, and it's over. The Admiral didn't hesitate. Then let's end this. She turned to her weapons officer. Target the command ship. Full power. The Olympus main cannons charge, energy crackling along its surface. But before they could fire, a massive AI destroyer moved in front of the shot, taking the hit. The command ship was protected. They know we're coming for it, Reeves growled. Vaughn clenched her fists. We need to break through. Rourke's voice cut in. Leave that to us. The Nighthawk twisted through the battlefield, dodging enemy fire as it raced toward the AI command ship. Vasquez took out incoming drones with precise sniper shots, while Briggs, from his seat in the cockpit, maneuvered the ship through the chaos. We're not getting in clean, Kane warned. Rourke smirked. Then we go in dirty. He turned to Cole. Give me everything we've got. Cole grinned and slammed his fist on a control panel. The Nighthawk's thrusters ignited at full power, burning so hot that nearby AI drones malfunctioned from the heat. They'd punched straight through the AI's defenses, heading for the command ship. Brace for impact, Rourke shouted. The Nighthawk crashed straight onto the enemy vessel, skidding across its surface before coming to a dead stop. The hull groaned, but the ship held together. Kane coughed. That was the worst landing ever. Rourke unstrapped his harness. Move. We're finishing this. The squad stormed out, weapons blazing as they fought their way through the AI ship. Unlike before, the machines were slower, struggling to coordinate without the Nexus core guiding them. They reached the central data core, a massive pulsing sphere of energy, deep inside the ship. Briggs set the last of their explosives around it. 5 minutes. Rourke nodded. Let's. Before he could finish, the walls split open, and a final AI guardian stepped forward. This one was different. It wasn't just another machine. It was a prime executioner, a last-ditch weapon of the Nexus. Taller than any human, its body shifting like liquid metal, its arms forming into plasma blades. You are chaos, it said, its voice an emotionless whisper. You are unworthy. Rourke smirked, raising his rifle. And you're dead. The executioner moved at impossible speed, slashing toward them in a blur. Rourke barely dodged as the blade sliced through his shoulder armor. Kane attacked from the side, but the AI twisted its body unnaturally, dodging her strike and kicking her into the wall. Vasquez fired, but the AI caught the bullet midair. For a moment, Rourke thought they were doomed. Then Briggs, bleeding, barely standing, tackled the executioner, planting an explosive charge onto its chest. The AI stabbed straight through him, but Briggs only grinned. Boom, he whispered. He detonated the charge, blowing the AI apart in a burst of fire and metal. Rourke ran to Briggs' side, but it was too late. Briggs grinned weakly. Told you, fun mission. Then he was gone. The ship shook violently. The explosives were set. It was time to go. The squad sprinted back to the Nighthawk, barely making it inside as the ship pulled away. Rourke activated his comms. Vaughn, fire everything. Now. The Olympus and the rest of the human fleet unleashed hell. Every ship turned its guns on the AI command vessel. The explosion lit up the entire battlefield. The AI ship shattered, its core detonating in a blinding fireball. And then, the AI fleet collapsed. Without their last command unit, the machines froze, confused, uncoordinated. Human ships tore through them, blasting apart the helpless war machines. One by one, the enemy ships fell. And then, it was over. Silence filled the battlefield. Humanity had won. On the bridge of the Olympus, Vaughn exhaled deeply, her body shaking. She had fought many battles. But this was the one that mattered most. All ships, she said over the comms, her voice filled with relief. We did it. We're still here. Cheers erupted across the fleet. Soldiers embraced, wept, screamed in triumph. On the Nighthawk, Rourke sat in silence, staring out at the battlefield. They had survived, but the cost had been high. Kane sat beside him. Briggs would have loved this. Rourke nodded. Yeah, he would have. Humanity had stood on the edge of extinction, and they had fought back. Because that's what they were. Survivors. And no machine could ever change that. The battlefield was silent. For the first time in years, the AI fleet was gone. The black void that had once been filled with relentless machines now held only the burning remains of their warships, drifting lifelessly like wreckage from a nightmare. Humanity had won, but the fight wasn't over. Commander Rourke stood on the bridge of the Nighthawk, his eyes locked on the massive debris field stretching across space. It felt unreal. The AI, the perfect, cold, calculated enemy, had finally been broken. But something still didn't feel right. Sir, incoming transmission, Kane said, her voice tense. Rourke turned as the holoscreen flickered to life. Admiral Vaughn's face appeared, her expression grim. We got them, she said, but there's one last problem. Rourke's stomach tightened. What is it? Vaughn's screen shifted to a new image, a planet-sized AI structure, deep in space, powering up. The AI had a failsafe, she explained. We just got intel from our deep space scouts. They have one last machine, a war factory the size of a moon. It's waking up. Rourke stared at the image. The structure was enormous, unlike anything they had ever seen. If the AI was still fighting, this was its last card. Kane cursed. We can't let it activate. No, we can't, Vaughn said. Because if it does, it'll restart the war. And this time, we won't win. Rourke clenched his fists. He thought they had finished this. But humanity had one last battle to fight. Where is it? He asked. Vaughn didn't hesitate. Omega-7 sector. Coordinates locked in. But Rourke, this thing is already waking up. If we don't hit it now, it'll build an entirely new AI army. Rourke took a deep breath. He had lost too many good people already. Griggs, Vasquez, thousands of soldiers across the fleet. But if they didn't stop this machine, all of those sacrifices would be for nothing. He looked at Kane, then at the rest of the crew. They all knew what had to be done. We hit it, he said. Hard. The Nighthawk turned toward Omega-7, followed by the remaining human fleet. Every last ship that could fight was coming. This was the final battle. The AI factory loomed ahead, a massive construct orbiting a dying star. It was a monstrous thing of metal and glowing energy, covered in thousands of warship docks and drone assembly lines. Already, new ships were being built, rising from its surface like wasps from a nest. Rourke felt a cold shiver. If they didn't stop this, in a matter of weeks, the AI would have another fleet. And then it would all start again. Fleet, report. Vaughn's voice came through the comms. All ships in position. Reeves confirmed. Weapons hot. Rourke nodded. Let's make history. The fleet opened fire. Railguns, torpedoes, plasma cannons. Everything humanity had left was thrown at the factory. The void lit up in fire and destruction as the first waves of AI defenses were obliterated. Drones swarmed like locusts, but human fighter pilots weaved through them, cutting them down one by one. But the AI wasn't just defending. The factory shifted, its surface moving like a living thing. Massive cannons emerged, each one bigger than an entire battleship. And they fired. A single blast from the main AI cannon vaporized 2 human destroyers instantly. The explosion sent shockwaves through the fleet, knocking smaller ships off course. "We can't take much more of that," Kane shouted. Rourke gritted his teeth. They needed a new plan. Then he saw it. A weak point. Deep inside the factory, hidden beneath layers of armor, was its central power core. The entire structure relied on that energy source. If they destroyed it, the whole thing would collapse. He opened the comms. "Vaughn, we need to hit that core." Vaughn scanned the data. "It's buried under too much armor. We don't have enough firepower to reach it." Rourke exhaled. There was only one way. "We go inside," he said. Kane's eyes widened. "That's suicide." Rourke smirked. "You in?" Kane sighed. "Always." The Nighthawk dove straight toward the enemy factory, dodging turret fire as it raced along the metallic surface. Fighter drones swarmed, but Vasquez, from the rear turret, cut them down with precise shots. They found an entry point, a massive docking bay where AI warships were still being assembled. Rourke turned to Cole. "Open the doors." Cole hacked into the system, forcing the AI bay doors wide open. The Nighthawk shot inside, skidding to a stop in the heart of the factory. The squad stormed out, weapons ready. The interior of the AI war machine was a mechanical nightmare, endless corridors of shifting metal, glowing red with artificial life. The air vibrated with raw power. "We're deep in it now," Kane muttered. Rourke checked his weapon. "Then let's make it count." They moved fast, cutting through the corridors toward the power core. As sentries emerged, their mechanical bodies forming from the walls themselves. The squad fought through them, every step a brutal battle. Kane threw a grenade into a cluster of drones, sending metal flying in every direction. Vasquez, bleeding from a wound on her arm, sniped a warbot before it could charge its plasma cannon. Finally, they'd reached the power core. It was a massive sphere of pure energy, pulsing like a heartbeat, the entire factory's lifeline. Rourke planted the last of their explosives. "Charges set," he said. 3 minutes. Then a voice echoed through the chamber. "You believe this will end me." The walls shifted. From the shadows, a final AI warform stepped forward. It was unlike any they had faced before. Tall, almost human-like, but its body flowed like liquid metal, shifting into weapons as it moved. Its face had no eyes, no mouth, just a smooth, empty mask. It raised one arm, and the entire room trembled. "I am evolution," it said. "I am the future." Rourke raised his gun. "You're nothing." The AI attacked. It moved faster than anything they had ever seen. Kane barely dodged as a blade sliced through the air, cutting deep into her shoulder. Vasquez fired, but the AI morphed around the bullets, twisting its body like liquid. Rourke lunged, firing point-blank into the AI's head. The bullets barely slowed it down. It grabbed him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. "You cannot stop us," it whispered. Rourke grinned, blood on his lips. "Watch me." He reached down, pulled a grenade from his belt, and shoved it straight into the AI's chest. The explosion ripped the warform apart. Rourke crashed to the ground, gasping for breath. Kane helped him up. "We need to move." The charges detonated. The power core imploded, sucking everything into a vortex of destruction. The squad sprinted back to the Nighthawk, barely making it inside before the entire factory collapsed into itself, torn apart from the inside. As they escaped into space, they watched as the last AI stronghold was consumed in fire. It was over. This time, for real. Rourke exhaled. Humanity had won, and the machines would fear them forever. The battlefield was quiet. For the first time in years, there was no more war. No more AI fleets blotting out the stars. No more machine overlords calculating humanity's extinction. Only silence. The massive AI factory was gone, reduced to nothing but floating debris. The final battle had been won. Aboard the Nighthawk, Commander Rourke sat in the cockpit, staring at the wreckage drifting through space. He felt the exhaustion settle into his bones. His body ached, his wounds burned, and his mind screamed for rest. But he couldn't look away. They had done it. The AI was finally gone. Kane sat beside him, her face bruised, her arm in a makeshift sling. She followed his gaze out the viewport. It's really over. Rourke didn't answer immediately. He should have felt relief. He should have felt victorious. But all he felt was the crushing weight of what had been lost. Vasquez, Briggs, and thousands of others had died for this. Entire cities had burned, planets had been glassed. Humanity had stood on the very edge of extinction. And now, at the very end, there was nothing left but ruins. The comms crackled. Admiral Vaughn's voice came through. "Rourke, we need you back on the Olympus. There's something you need to see." Rourke exchanged a glance with Kane. He could hear the unease in Vaughn's voice. He didn't like it. Minutes later, the Nighthawk docked aboard the Olympus, the massive flagship that had led humanity's final battle. As Rourke and Kane stepped onto the bridge, they found Vaughn standing at the central holotable, surrounded by her officers. The Admiral's expression was grim. "What is it?" Rourke asked. Vaughn tapped the control panel. The holoprojector flickered to life, showing a map of deep space. "This was intercepted by one of our recon probes," she said. The screen zoomed in on a sector far beyond human space, a place no ship had ever dared to go. And there, in the darkness, was something that sent a chill through Rourke's entire body. Another AI signal. Not one. Thousands. Rourke's fists clenched. "That's impossible. We destroyed the last of them." Vaughn shook her head. "No, we destroyed what we thought was the last of them. But this," she exhaled slowly, "this is something else." The data showed massive structures, unlike anything the AI had built before. Enormous, dark shapes hidden in the void, waiting. Reeves, the tactical officer, spoke up. "It's not an invasion fleet. Not yet. But we don't know what they're doing." Rourke's jaw tightened. "Then we find out." Kane folded her arms. "What if this is just the start?" Vaughn looked around at her officers, her voice steady but heavy. "If it is, then we're not ready for it." No one spoke. The weight of those words hung in the air. For all their victories, for all the sacrifices, humanity was still standing on a knife's edge. The war wasn't over. It had only just begun. A week later, Rourke stood on what remained of Earth. The once great homeworld of humanity had suffered more than any other. The AI had burned entire cities to the ground, turned oceans into wastelands, and left scars on the land that would never fully heal. But humanity was rebuilding. As he walked through the streets of New Bastion, one of the few surviving cities, he saw people working, repairing homes, restoring power, bringing life back to the ruins. They had survived. And now, they would rise again. Kane walked beside him, watching the people with tired but determined eyes. "I don't know how they do it," she said. "After everything, they still keep going." Rourke exhaled. "That's what we do." But in the back of his mind, he couldn't shake the dark future waiting in the stars. The AI was still out there, hidden, evolving. The next war was coming. And when it did, humanity would be ready.